Hello, it's My True North. It's 1 o'clock on a Monday afternoon, and yet again, it is us going live to be able to share with you and as many people as possible the importance of being able to significantly and sustainably grow both you and your business. Every Monday at 1 p.m, we'll be going live here on the page and being able to share even more details that we've taken from the research that we conducted over 4 years on more than 150 business failures to be able to help you to circumnavigate and prevent yourself from becoming the next victim. So without further ado, I'm going to be able to quickly share this with a few people, get a few more people live. If you know others that you think might benefit from being with us today, then please feel free to add them or invite them to come and join us. So just a quick few clicks on being able to make sure that people are with us, and I'll start. I'm going to be here for about 25-30 minutes, and more than welcome to be able to take questions. What I'd like you to do, if you've got a question or a comment that you'd like to be able to share at any time throughout this next live, if you're just kind enough to be able to write it in the comments, and I will come and read all the comments before we finish the live, but I won't be interrupting the live to be able to look at comments throughout. So if you come up with a comment, or if you've got something that you'd like to be able to ask along the way, please feel free to just scribble it in the box, drop me a message, and before I finish today, about 30 minutes time today, I'll go through all of the comments and answer any of your questions. So without further ado, let's talk today about the top 10 tips about where to start when completing a business plan. If you recall last Monday, and if you haven't already seen it, then please go onto the archives and be able to find last week's video. But last week we talked all about the importance of why you should have a business plan. So this week I want to be able to expand on that some further and help people understand where to start. You see, for me, a business plan is an integral part of the business. And yet, as soon as you look at the template, and if you haven't got one, then if you simply go on to www.mytruenorth.club, register for a free access to our vault, and in the QM stores, you'll find that we've already provided a business plan template and a business plan user guide on how to be able to complete it. But you will notice that it's quite a significant document. It's quite a sizable document because it's got to include all of the relevant information for all of your business needs, both now and in the future. And it doesn't matter as to whether you're a small startup or a micro business or all the way through to an SME or a PLC. You still need a business plan, and you still need to include all of the different segments. It might just be a little bit different in level of detail that you go to, depending on how big the business becomes. Nevertheless, it's massively important to be able to understand the importance of having a business plan, and then two, understanding all of the different elements that needs to go into it to be able to make sure that it is as effective as possible. So today I've got top 10 tips for you on the things that you need to consider when completing your business plan. And in at number one is tailoring. You see, a business plan isn't simply a single document. A business plan might differ somewhat depending on the nature or the need to be able to generate one. If you've never done one before, that's fine. There's always a chance to be able to get started. However, even if you've already got a business plan in situ, it might be a little bit out of date. It might need amending depending on what your goals and ambitions are for 2020, 2021. But it might be that you wrote a business plan when you first set the business up, and you subsequently are now looking for some funding or some investments to be able to help grow the business and drive it forward. Or it might be that you're looking to be able to partner with somebody or a joint venture with somebody. It might be that you're looking to expand or diversify. There are a number of reasons as to why you might choose to be updating the business plan. And therefore, depending on the outcome that you want from it or the reasons for it, will depending on the type of information that one you want to include within it and the level of detail that you need to be able to do so. So first of all, number one, tailor the business plan to the audience to which it is going to be shared. Give due considerations to the reason and the purpose for the business plan, and then subsequently make sure that the relevant elements are within it to be able to excite the people going to read it. Number two of our top 10 tips, research the market. You see, the business plan is not just about you. It's about your place in the market. It's about your sectoral expertise and understanding more about where that fits in the whole segment. So make sure that you spend sufficient amount of time, not just looking at your local competition or the people down the road, but also expand that further to be able to research local competition, regional competition, national competition, possibly even international competition, to understand as to the likelihood of where you sit in the market and your segment, your slice. How much of this market are you trying to interact with or to take control of? How much of the sector are you trying to be able to manage within your business plan? What is your aspirations for growth? It's all right saying, we want to take over the world. Brilliant. So what does that look like? How big is the world in your sector, your segment, and what does taking it over and dominating it actually look like? So make sure you do sufficient research, both on where you sit and on your competitors. Now, there's a quick thing I wanted to quickly share with you on doing research, because you've probably heard many times all over the place that people talk to us about doing SWOT analysis, the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. And I'm going to tell you straight away, I do not want you to carry out any form of SWOT. I want you to SWOT. It's just put it to bed, get it out of the way. It's not necessary or relevant. What I'd like you to replace it with is toes. Not the little things on the end of your feet, but the things that tends to pull vehicles and the likes. TOWS. And yes, you've probably gathered, all I've done is I've turned the letters round from SWOT to spell the word toes. But why is that important? And I assure you that it is. You see, if we were to do a SWOT analysis, we're talking about strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. There's a lot of negative talk going on when we actually carry out SWOT analysis. We look for our own strengths and then to our weaknesses. We make comparisons of the good by showing the ugly. We look at the opportunities out there and then we concentrate on the threats. And interestingly enough, dynamically in the back of our minds, in the subconscious, we're actually talking ourselves out of all of the things that we'd like to be able to aspire and achieve over the next 12, 24, 36 months. We've created this negative talk internally about why it's not a good idea to be able to move forward with the business plan, or starts to restrict our thinking. And that's just ridiculous. However, turn it on its head. Instead of doing strengths and weaknesses, why don't you start with the weaknesses in our own business, and then what do we need to do to turn them into strengths? What are the actions that we're going to take as a part of the business plan that we're going to commit to over the next 12 months in order to be able to identify weaknesses in our own business or in our own segment or offering or sector, and then find a means that from the business plan of the actions that we're going to be able to take to turn those into strengths. Likewise, if we talk about strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, if we talk about the threats from outside, if we talk about the others, the competition, if we look at the things that are likely to cause a problem, and then we can turn it on its head and say, okay, so what are our opportunities? Where are the opportunities for either us to grow? Where are the opportunities that we could take on board, rather than jumping into a whole bag of worms and start causing problems for ourselves in the growth of the business in the future? It's just that simple switch in dialogue. We're getting the same information, but we're going to present it in a far more positive manner if we look to the positives towards the end of the conversation of the research, as opposed to starting with positives and then ending with a whole heap of negatives. Sincerely hope that helps for you. It's just about helping the internal dialogue understand the difference between a positive outlook and a negative outlook. So research the market, point number 2, but make sure that we do a toes analysis. And ironically, this will really help you stand out from your competition when people are looking at your business plans, because, oh, that's a bit different, that's interesting. but also it'll help massively in your own internal dialogue with being able to help keep the positivity moving forward. So number 3, attention to detail. Now, the numerous business plans I've read over the 15, 20 years in business that hundreds of people have put forward to be able to share with me and get my opinion on, the amount of times where some of the most important information to me is missing. And it's either because people don't know, so they blank it out and ignore that section, but they're not that very confident on it, so they gloss over it and think that I will too. And the simple fact is, the more information you share, the easier it becomes for me to be able to understand the ethics, the values, the vision, the culture of the business. The easier it for me to start to become associated with who you are and what you're trying to achieve. So please, don't skimp on details. A business plan worth its salt or worth its weight in gold is down to some timely consideration with regards to completing it. This is not a 30-minute coffee break exercise. This is something that's perhaps going to take 3 or 4 attempts or iterations. It might take 3 or 4 weeks or possibly even a couple of months to be able to really, really drill down on the research required and add the amount of detail in order for me to be able to understand that this person really knows what they're talking about. They've given it due consideration. This is something of a document of some worthiness and worthy of the read, because there's information in there that's valuable to me, as opposed to a skim it through and it's a 2-page document. So really stay away from skimming over detail and understand the importance of being able to really give me some meat on the bone, as it were, for me to be able to understand what and where and when and how. Number 4, if the reason that you are applying for a business plan, and don't get me wrong, the majority of times that people are completing a business plan is usually in terms of finance and financials, either for you to have a better understanding with regards to what it is that you're trying to achieve, or to try and convince somebody else of what you're trying to achieve in order that they will invest within you. If you're asking for cash, if you're asking for somebody else other than you to be able to spend some time, effort, and more importantly, their money, their hard-earned cash, in investing in you, in your business, then you owe it to them and any form of respect that you have for them and their influence, their investment, to be able to demonstrate clearly and quite early on in a business plan the benefits of investing for the investor, not for you as a business owner. You see, as an investor, I've made a decision to be willing to support other people, but not simply for them to get rich. That might be what we want to achieve as a result of everything that we're going to do in the business plan. But the investor's got no interest in investing in you becoming rich. The investor wants to be able to know that they've made a good decision in investing in something really positive and driving forward, and something that's going to look good on their investment CV. So make sure that you spend some time supporting the investors to understand the benefits of investing in you and your business, as opposed to the multitude of other opportunities that gets put across their desk every single day. You've got to be able to make sure that if you're asking for money from somebody else, that you demonstrate and understand the benefits of them investing in you and your business beyond any other opportunity. Now, that might be a financial reward of some significance, or it might be the goodwill, it might be it fits nicely within their investment portfolio. There's a whole number of reasons as to why an investor might invest, but you've got to be able to make it clear to them that you've given considerations to that also, and that it's not simply give us a pot of cash and hopefully we'll get some money back to you at some stage in the future, which quite frankly is what I often see in a small business plan. Number 6, don't leave stuff out. Lots of financials, and when you're doing the financials, please make it easy to understand and pretty. Now I've used that word pretty, and I'm going to clarify it very quickly. There is nothing more boring than trying to read a whole series of words and numbers. It's just monotonous. I'm going to fall asleep. I'm going to fall out of enthusiasm with it, and very quickly I'm going to throw it to one side and pick up the next of the multitude of documents on my desk asking me to invest. You've got to make your investment opportunity stand out, your business plan stand out. It's got to look an exciting document, and a picture paints 1,000 words. And therefore, if you're going to use numbers, and I strongly recommend that there are a number of numbers within your business plan with regards to projections and actuals, with regards to understanding where the investment's going to go and what it's going to be used for, and the return on investment at the time frame. There's a whole multitude of things required in the financial section of a business plan. But I'm going to be a lot more excited about it if you've shown it me in both a graph and a table and a chart, as opposed to just some numbers on a page. So give due consideration to the way I want to receive the information, and ensure that you've put enough enthusiasm into it to be able to make it look a sexy document, as well as the information in it being exciting. Cool. Number 7 already. Number 7. Rome was not built in a day, and neither shall your successful business. An investor isn't just investing in your idea, they are investing in you. So spend some time talking about the qualifications, caliber of person, background experience, competencies, what's led you to get to where you are today. Give the investor some confidence in who are they investing in, as well as what they are investing in. And likewise, doesn't matter whether you're a micro startup or a PLC, recognize the team that are going to help you get there. I'm not just talking about download LinkedIn profiles and CVs. I'm talking about being able to put a photograph to a person's names, to a phone number or an email address, and give me a bit of a bio with regards to the people on your team, the organizational structural chart of whereabouts they sit right now, or where they're going to sit in the business once it's had some investment into it. Tell me about their role and their past experience as to why you've picked them and not somebody else to be part of the team. Demonstrates to me that this is a team worth investing in, that they've got background experience and competencies, and help me understand why this is a winning team and a winning business. Cool. Number 8 already. Good grief. A compelling executive summary. Now, when you go and open your business plan, you will notice that the first thing it asks for is an executive summary. And yet I'm going to suggest to you it's the last thing that you complete in your business plan. Once every other page is fully documented, do you go back and write your executive summary. This didn't ought to be any longer than a page, probably somewhere between 1/3 and 2/3 of an A4 page, and gives me a brief overview with regards to what and where and when and why and how. Make it compelling. Use interesting words as opposed to simply jargon. Try and cut away from acronyms, because as an investor I might not necessarily always understand your market, or those acronyms might mean something completely different to me than they do to you. So be able to make sure that you spell it out and understand it well, but also use interesting and inviting, use emotive terminology, and then back it up with fact and financial. But try and get me excited. Sell me the sizzle of the sausage as opposed to simply a pack of sausages. Get me to be able to get a flavour of who you are, what you are, when you are, why this is so important. Make sure that your executive summary reads so well that it's an aperitif to the main course. It makes me want to turn the page and learn more. Number 9. Before you put this in stone, before you print it, file it, before you share it with everybody else, before it becomes a living document in your business, and I'll tell you about that just very briefly in a second, but before you go any further, once you're satisfied that you've completed your business plan, go and share it with somebody else. Not necessarily the investor, not necessarily your mum or your best friend, but go and share it with someone who you expect to be critical of your investment, of your business plan, of your business methodology. Go to somebody who you anticipate is going to be the thorn in your side, the conscience. Go to somebody who is independent of the business and of you. And ironically, like I've suggested already in today's video, I receive hundreds of business plans from our clients who use me as their sounding boards to be able to give them some very open and honest advice with regards to whether this is yet ready for onward transmission. I cannot tell you the importance of you reading your plan several times over and then getting somebody else to red pen it. Remember the old days at school when in actual fact what you were looking for is a lack of red pen? You would pass it to the teacher in the hope that it came back without a mark on it. I haven't yet done that to a business plan, and I've been doing this for well over 10 years. There will always be something that you've either missed or failed to give due considerations to, or fails to give significant importance to, something that you might have overlooked that is really vitally important to somebody else outside the business. So I can't implore you enough to be able to, once you think you've finished, that's just to accept that's probably first draft. And the next things to do is to go back and share it with somebody else who you anticipate and expect to be critical, not to pat you on the back and say, oh, well done, because they're going to overlook the same things that you've overlooked. So find someone who is independent and being willing to be open, honest, transparent, and argumentative, almost a little bit challenging with regards to your plan, that you can validate what you've said, why you've said, how you've said, to somebody else. Because ironically, I can guarantee if you are looking for investment or if you're looking to get somebody else involved, either now or at some stage in the future, this business plan has got to be so compelling that they read it and they get as excited as you are. So number 9 is all about being able to get a second opinion and acknowledge the fact that lots of red pen is actually a good thing, because it means that they've read it thoroughly, they've given due considerations to it, and they've given you a lot of markers with regards to what and where and when and why and how to improve it before you go into the lion's den and ask for that help and support. Ironically, I'm working with a business at the moment that's in a pre-revenue startup phase. And I think we're on the 5th iteration of the business plan in order to ensure that when we put it in front of the investors, we get the money that we're looking for the startup. 5 different attempts to be able to get the thing finished. And believe you me, every single one of them is a good business plan. But a business plan evolves. A business plan is part of your thinking process as opposed to just your writing practice. Part of a business plan, the end part of a business plan, is about being able to implement it and potentially receive some funding if required. The most important part of a business plan is the research and the stop and the consideration as to what do you need to include in order to be able to achieve the investment and the success that comes as a result from it. So it's all about being able to give yourself enough times to be able to think and consider and review. And all of these iterations are moving forward. They're building blocks, they're stepping stones towards the right document with the right information in the right manner to be able to get the right response. And the last of the 10 points that I'm sharing with you today is about implementation. You see, from the research that we conducted, from over 150 different businesses that failed, we found that more than 40% either didn't have a business plan It might have been talked about and considered at a boardroom level, but didn't have a document that could be shared with others. It was all closed behind doors and not to be discussed. They either didn't have a business plan, or the business plan was significantly out of date and didn't reflect the current status and the future status of the business, or that they did have a business plan, it was up to date, but simply wasn't being followed by the people making the daily and weekly decisions. And that was a contribution to more than 40% of the businesses that we researched and their subsequent failure. The importance of a living, breathing document to which all business decisions are made is critical if you're going to move from growth to scale. And therefore, what we've shared today is 10 tips on how to get started and the importance of what to consider. I'm going to quickly just recap those, and then I'm going to come to the messages. And if you've got any questions at all, please jot them in the messages there, and I'll come through and I'll read every single one and answer them before we finish today's live. So number one, tailor the message to the audience. Make sure that the business plan is suitable and fit for consumption for the reasons to which you are writing it in the first place. Number two, research the market, but make sure that you do a TOES assessment as opposed to a SWOT analysis. Make sure it's a positive slant as opposed to the negativity sometimes caused by SWOT. Number three, an attention to detail. Don't leave out bits that you don't know. Simply stop and research until you do know. Make sure that all of the information is there and relevant to me, as opposed to me looking for bits and can't find the information that's relevant to me. Number four, if you're applying for cash, make sure that you demonstrate the benefits to the investor of that cash. Makes perfect sense if you spell it out in that manner, but I can guarantee you that the majority of people talk about investment into a business and don't talk about the benefits of the investor or benefits for the investor. Number five, don't leave stuff out. Be able to make sure that you are applicable and that you give all of the relevant information. Number six, lots of financial information. Make sure that you share all of you possibly can with regards to the financials, both now and projections for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But don't just put it in a boring, monotone numbers on a page. Make it look exciting. Give me graphs, give me tables, give me pictures, give me infographics. Show me that you've given due consideration as to making it easy for me to understand as to where the money comes in, how it's being spent, how it's being returned, and the benefits to both me and to you as a business. Number seven, make sure that you share details about you and your team. Make sure that you'll share lots of details with regards to the competencies and background and facilities that have brought these teams together in order to be able to give me confidence that this is the right people to be able to invest my time, effort, and money into. Number eight, and only once you get to the number eight, do you go back and then write a very compelling executive summary. Make it exciting, make it interesting, maybe a tantalizing taste of what is to come. So I want to turn the page and actually look at the detail. Number nine, get a second opinion. Give it to somebody who you know is going to critique who you are and what you do, and be willing to accept lots of red pen and a second or third iteration if required. It's far better getting it wrong in front of somebody that's going to critique who isn't important to the business, as opposed to having to go cap in hand and ask for a second chance to the one person that you needed to impress and failed to because you'd missed something vital to them. And finally, implement the damn thing. There is no point having a business plan if it's going to sit on a shelf or in a folder or in a file or an archive somewhere and not be used. We've already established that over 153 businesses that we studied and found what caused their failure, over 40% of them was because they either didn't have the business plan, it wasn't being followed, or it wasn't up to date. I sincerely hope that you found that of use. I'm going to dive onto the questions and find out who's been writing what. So, Amanda, lovely to have you with us today. Thanks very much for joining us. CJ, lovely to have you with us. Aaron, also with us. Thank you very much. Weakness, turnaround planning, interesting. There's a lot of people who say focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses. Now, don't get me wrong. It's important to be able to emphasize your strengths, but it's not as important as to being able to open and honest and transparent and say, these are the things that we are not so great in, and these are the things we're going to do to overcome that. This is the impact it's likely to have on the business or on the opportunity, and this is what we're doing to be able to rectify that fact. You see, there's a massive problem with people going out there and claiming to be superheroes. There's a huge problem with regards to going out there and pretending to be brilliant at everything. An investor knows full well that we're not. So we're looking for the chinks in the armor. We're looking for the openness and the honesty and the transparency, because ironically, the quickest way to overcome a problem is to first of all acknowledge a problem. It was Winston Churchill in 1942 that said, a man's greatest strength is to acknowledge weakness, is to know what they're not good at, and therefore how they're going to combat and overcome that enables it to become a strength. So, numbers plus charts plus infographics, excellent. Can't agree with you more. Teamwork makes the dream work. Amens to that. There is no I in team, but together, everyone achieves more. It's the whole acronym of team. 2 to 3 pages of a page for an executive summary. So yeah, about 2/3 of a page. Depending on the size of the business plan, I would suggest as a minimum, you're probably looking for, I don't tend to look more interestingly or favourably on business plans of less than about 9 or 10 pages. By the time you've got to about 25 pages, I'm starting to get bored, unless it's a huge big business and you're looking for significant amount of investment where I need to know a lot about the different departments and how it's being invested. I've certainly seen some very successful business plans at about 35, 40 pages, but they were multi-million-pound businesses with multiple different facets that needs to be included in every single example. But the whole thing about a one-page business plan, I'm sorry, but that's not a business plan, it's an idea. You've got to give some significant considerations to this, and that does deem that there's some work to be put into it. But I would suggest somewhere between a third, a half, maybe no more than 2/3 of a page in an executive summary is sufficient to be able to wet my whistle, to be able to excite me sufficiently to be able to say, is this something that I'm interested in? And if so, I need to apply the relevant amount of time to be able to read through this with a lot more diligence and give it due consideration. 2/3 of a page. Sell the sizzle in the executive summary. Exactly. So sell the sizzle of the sausage and not necessarily the sausage itself. Good. I was going to ask if this is something you can help me with. More than happy to. As a founder member of the My True North Explorer Group, you're more than welcome to be able to have some help and support in being able to make use of that. Peter, thanks for joining us. I hope you've got something from that today. When did you say to find the business plan again? Certainly. Let's put a link in here straight away. If you was to visit www.mytruenorth.club, if I put that in there at the bottom, if you visit mytruenorth.club, if you haven't already done so, you can sign up as a free member. We are not going to charge you anything to be able to have access to our QM store. And within the store, we have a business plan and a business plan guide as to how to complete it and fill it in. I hope you found that of use. Lisa, thanks very much for joining us today. I hope you got something from that today. I'd be most grateful if you are liking, sharing, commenting with all of your business associates and colleagues this video to demonstrate that we really are on a mission to be able to help 10,000 business owners to be able to significantly and sustainably grow both them and the businesses with the aim to add a zero to their personal disposable income. Next week, as part of our live Facebook here on the page at 1 p.m. on Monday, I'll be talking about the most crucial element of a business plan, those business numbers, understanding what to include, where to include, how to include, and how to not sex them up, but to be able to sell them in such a way that is of ease and interest to any investor. So that's next week, Monday at 1 p.m. here on the page. Make sure you don't miss out. Hope you have a great Monday, have a wonderful week, and I look forward to being able to see you again next week. Take care. Bye-bye now.